Hackthebox has a beautiful lab called weak RSA. In this lab, we're studying this RSA encryption technique where we are using public and private keys for encrypting and decrypting the messages. We are also able to use the public keys for uh, signatures or digital verification purposes. In this case, however, we are given the public key and a message encrypted using the public key. So we are decrypting the message and reading the flag out from the plain text. I tried to work it on Python, but there is a tool. I think RFA is a CTF tool that can give you uh, the answer with a single command for weak RSAs, as in this case. But the reason I went with Python exercise is to understand the concept better because it's a very popular or very widely used crypto system for data transmission. So I wanted to learn more about it. There are a lot of resources to practice on the material, and this one here is one of the resource I used a lot. So it's a Python RSA implementation, and the routine is um, summarized in here, and there is the source codes available. Um, so the way I look at the problem is that following the terminology and the symbols used in this crypto system, the public key is defined by a lowercase e and n. E is the public exponent, n is the modulus. And the private key is defined by lowercase d and n again the modulus, and d is the private exponent. Right? Now, we are given this public key here on the problem definition. So we can call a library called crypto public key library, and we can import this RSA component and read out the E and N values from the given public key. So we get the modulus and the public key exponent from the given key directly. A couple of things about modulus. Modulus is really defining the RSA key length. Typically, it's a very big number. If I write over here, and it's such a big number, and E is the public key component. Now, once we get this N and E, and N and E, what we need to do next is explain here that phi n calculation. This phi is a very interesting function here. There are some videos over that on about it on YouTube, but basically phi is defined as the number of numbers for a given value n. Let's say we are looking at the phi value for a given number n. So the phi n is basically the number of the number of the values less than n, and the condition is here that the numbers less than n should not have a common factor with n, or one should be the only common factor. So what I mean by that, let's look at this phi of 8. So 8, so if I write down the numbers less than 8, 7, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. These are numbers. So these should be non-negative numbers, and 0 is not included. So anything uh, greater than 0, basically. So 7 and 8, they only have a common factor of 1. So 7 stays. 6, however, 6 and 8, they have common factor of 2. So this is eliminated. 5, 5 and 8 has a common factor. 5 and 8 have a common factor of 1, so it stays. 4 and 8 has a have a common factor of 2, so 4 is eliminated. 3 and 8, they don't have a common factor other than 1. 2 and 8 have a common factor of 2. The number itself is eliminated. So these numbers are left. So the phi of 8 is basically 4. So basically, phi of 8 is the number of the values less than 8 where they have a common factor with 8 only as 1. And this this sounds like a very difficult calculation, but when you are dealing with prime numbers, that's a very straightforward calculations. Let's say 7. 7 is a prime number. And since 7 is a prime number, it's only divisible by 1 and itself. So all the numbers that are less than this prime number will be included. So phi of 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So basic this phi calculation is very straightforward when you are dealing with prime numbers, but when you are dealing with other non-prime numbers, it's difficult to calculate. Therefore, um, in this concept, we define phi of n as that modulus as multiplication of two very large prime numbers. Okay, and if you look at numbers of number n here, so let me go back. Number n, the modulus here, it says such a big number, it's very difficult to find two relatively large prime numbers with ideally equal byte size. So we are using a tool, and it is factordb.com. Let me find it in my second screen. Okay, so this is the website. So basically, you are putting down this big number here and factorizing, and it gives you the p value and q value. So p and q values are here used or will be used. So once we know the modulus, we need to take the phi of this modulus here, and we select two very large prime numbers, p and q. And our intention here is to get the p and q because we will be using p and q to get the last symbol missing in our public key and private key definition. So in the public key definition, we need E and N, and they are given to us in the problem definition directly. And also there. So D is really, we need to calculate, and D is defined as the private exponent. And this private exponent requires us to know the P and Q values where we can get these prime numbers from this factordb.com in this case. And this operation here is helping us to get the D, the private exponent. So E is the public exponent, public key exponent, yes, and D is the private key exponent. So the private key exponent has this power calculation. That also looks a little bit interesting, but there is a simplification behind this routine here. Let me go through the functional form first. So it's a power term calculation. So in the term calculation, the first value here is the base. So our base is the um, public key exponent, right? And our exponent is an integer value -1. And then we have this third component here, which is the phi of the modulus. We covered that here, phi of the modulus. And basically, that is the mode that we are looking at. So in in um, in short definition, so basically, the simplification is such that E times P, so the public key exponent, and also this prime number, I'm sorry, D, not P, D, which is the private key exponent, should give us a value of 1 in mode of phi n, phi n. So here is phi n, as we discussed on here before. There it is. So D times E should equal to 1 in mode of phi n. So E comes from the left-hand side to the right-hand side as 1 over E. That's why we have -1 term to show that E is in the denominator on the right-hand side. Well, that will give us the D value calculated. Now we have all the components to define the public and private keys. Okay. Next, we will be reading this encrypted message, which is encrypted using the public key given in the problem definition. We will read this flag. And then we will do this byte order operation here. That's also something was confusing to me in the beginning, but basically, let me open up the article about it. Okay, so this, so basically, the byte order can be big or little. There are two options, and it all boils down to the consistency, basically, because if it's a machine data, so numbers is easy, but data is a little bit ambiguous in the way it's defined. So in some machines it is stored in left to right, in some machines it is right to left. Basically, this big small distinction here is telling us big Indian systems store data in memory the same way we humans think about data, left to right, which makes low-level debugging easier. So I think by default or typically we will be doing big byte order, which will keep us on the same page with other people working on this problem if we are part of a team. So we are consistent in the way we store data. Right. And then this operation here is again similar to what we have discussed here. So we have the power term. So the base is the encrypted text. D is the private key exponent. That's the exponent in the calculation. And we are trying to get this modulo so mode of the exponent of the public key. Yeah. Later, we need to know the number of bytes on this string, which is given as, or which is given here as in hexadecimal format. Right. So what we do is we use this floor division operation because we know that 1 byte is represented with 2 characters, in the hexadecimal format, right? So 1 byte of data will have 2 characters in the hexadecimal format. So we are doing this integer division. So we are rounding down here and then adding 1 here because the index is 0 as the start. And then using this byte order, we decode the text and write it into bytes and print out the flag. And once it is done, here, this encrypted message is this in the clean text format, and that is the flag on that example called weak RSA by hack the box, and it is inside the cryptography module, cryptography challenges. All right, thanks for your time.